Hello and welcome to the Canine Rehab Movement Podcast, where we discuss all things canine rehab, fitness, and sports medicine for our four-legged companions. We cover a variety of topics with amazing guests in an educational and entertaining format. Some would even call it edutainment. Now, we are all about canine rehab and fitness training, or craft. So join us and hone your craft with the Canine Rehab Movement Podcast. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Paw Prosper, your trusted destination for leading preventative, supportive, and rehabilitative pet products. Make your practice more efficient with top brands all in one place. Whether you need Help 'em Up harnesses, Fit Paws exercise equipment, Muffins Halo for blind dogs, Response Systems laser and PEMP therapy devices, or canine carts for mobility support. Discover how easy it is to find the best products to keep your patients healthy, aid in their recovery, and help them age gracefully. So visit pawprosper.com today. All right, guys. Today we are with the director of the CCAT program, Dr. Denis Marcellin-Little, and one of the lead instructors, Dr. David Levine. Now, they're going to be enlightening us and going in depth about the CCAT program itself and the necessities we need for the future of canine rehab. So, without further pause, let's get right into introductions. Dr. Marcellin-Little, please give us a little background about yourself, and Dr. Levine, you can follow up afterwards.
Denis Marcellin-Little here, who is interested in orthopedics and became board certified veterinary surgeon a long while ago. And I was drawn to investigate how to enhance recovery, maybe as much as anything else, how we minimize complications, if you want, how we make recovery more predictable back in the 1990s, which made me move towards understanding maybe rehabilitation. That was the very beginning early on. Feel like I've been doing the same thing since I did my residency. I've been helping patients with problems, try to get better and doing my best at it. And along the way, trying to observe things as much as possible, report things, discuss things. So I've been writing papers here and there on rehabilitation and on orthopedics. And I was in North Carolina early on at NC State. And about 6 years ago, I made a big transcontinental move to the University of California, Davis, where I work now at UC Davis, still doing the same thing as an orthopedic surgeon.
Very cool. And you, David?
Oh, sure. Well, I've been a physical therapist since 1986, so it's been a long road in that. But when I moved to Tennessee, I was finishing my PhD at UT and got interested in collaborating with folks at UT. Have been working in the field of canine rehabilitation since 1993. Certainly work with other species as well. I do research with the folks in equine. I think what I've really enjoyed is seeing how the field has changed over the last 20 some years. And this was a field that, quite honestly, speaking at some early meetings, people snickered, people looked at it as a very maybe alternative way of treatment. And I love to see how it's become more mainstream, and pretty much anywhere you go in the US, if your pet needs some structured rehabilitation to recover from surgery or injury, or to just be more functional and live a better life, you can find somebody that can assist you.
Yeah, no, it's really cool how it's grown and expanded. And but it actually was years back looked upon as, for lack of better words, a little bit of a joke or, yeah, if you want to try it, sure, go ahead. But now it's really starting to catch wind as like in the human world where it's second nature, especially to orthopedists like yourself, Dr. Little, where it just follows right afterwards. Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. You guys are definitely quite the pioneers and definitely help this field grow and evolve. I can't wait to really truly see it as a norm instead of a niche, for sure. But let's get back to the CCAT program, the conceptualization of it all, right? Let's talk about maybe its origin and the concept behind it. What were you guys looking to really create here?
I would say the trigger to jump toward the creation of the CCAT was the desire to have modern, up-to-date opportunity for people to discuss, learn, formalize their training in rehabilitation, get them ready to work with each other. I'm thinking hopefully we get back to that, but I think the key is to emphasize a realistic model of a service that will help. Clients are seeking that, and I think the goal was to say, in this day and age, with the current landscape, the equipment, the where we are with rehabilitation, what can we package together to facilitate people joining field, whether they are technicians, vets, PT or PTAs, they
Yeah.
will become a part of a team. In some way, maybe we develop a bit of a language or a common experience. You could say at some point a community when it becomes large enough that then is aligned on physical rehabilitation for companion animals.
I think the collaborative approach where we have the different professions coming together, whether it's physical therapy or veterinary medicine or occupational therapy or others that might have expertise in engineering or nutrition. It's the bringing together of all these individuals with their expertise to advance the field and for the betterment of the patient eventually. While the growth has been, some might say, really big, I think we still have a long way to go to really make this the evidence-informed field that we want it to be and really understand what's going to help our individual patients to the greatest degree.
I'm going to add real quick that we both have research positions a little bit in our daytime job. And it's
Yeah.
not a shock that and we are teachers. I look at myself, I look at the most important thing I do is the mentorship or sharing experiences maybe my main goal is for people to say, hey, it took me 25 years to get to this point, and you might not be exactly the same point I am, but I'm going to share everything I can with you to bring you forward in 1 year rather than 25. That's what the program is about, sharing
Yeah.
experiences and facilitating the growth of somebody they want to learn or the attendees. And so that's what hopefully happens to them. It accelerates their growth. But I think when I hear about the importance of collaboration, I'm thinking, looking at Dave's work and looking at my work, there's often a collaboration, a PT, DVM, engineering collaboration to understanding problem better. And say the CCAT is just that. It's that collaboration that helps people do the right thing by saying, we're going to bring the best of what we know and we're going to help you implement it or adapt it to your local environment.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. You guys definitely established a truly awesome development and structure of that program. And going back to the previous episode where I was talking to Deb, and she had mentioned working alongside the Dream Team. And one of the reasons why is that when you guys aren't teaching, you're studying. And when you're not studying, you're researching and writing. So it's really cool to see all these instructors always having their mind on the advancement of canine rehab and the field itself for sure. But yeah, let's get a little bit more into that, discussing the academic and practical components of CCAT. Just an overview. You don't have to do every bit or breakdown of it, but for those listening and could be interested in CCAT.
The CCAT in some way has been, maybe flipped in a sense that the learning happens early on. We didn't want to be sitting in a room listening to lectures for weeks at a time, if you want. And
Yeah.
historically, a lot of the learning was this slow paced, painful thing. So a lot of work was put into the fundamental part of the program before meet, and then concentrating the labs into an experience that was faster paced and very practical, followed by integrating, discussing how the basic knowledge acquired online and the practical knowledge acquired during a few days of practical experience can be then adapted again or optimized for specific situations. So it has these parts that are maybe more adapted to modern life, where you don't have to spend weeks at a time in one place, to try to concentrate the learning, the interactive learning, into both practical and discussion about decision making, about trying to develop, to change your attitude and have everyone develop a sound judgment in making decisions. We can't list decisions. You have to have the decision making has to be grown through these very interactive discussions.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do think decision making comes to each and every practitioner. And I think you guys help to nourish that for sure. But let's talk about, like you were saying, being modern, segueing to that and talking about the technology that's shaped the program too.
Sure. I think, and just finishing up on education, or not finishing, we never finish on that, but
Yeah.
everybody learns differently. And I think you really need to meet people where they're at. And some people are very practical learners. Some like to sit with a book in a library. So I think it's about being flexible enough in day jobs in academia, but as well as seminars, on trying to get to know people well enough to meet them where you can understand their needs, how they learn, and you can optimize their experience. In terms of, you mentioned technology and new technology, you might go to a show like VMX, or you might go to the PTA conference, and these shows may have 400, 500, 600 booths in an exhibit hall.
Mhm.
And how do you navigate thinking about what that equipment might do within your practice? How do you navigate even trying to understand what of the new technology is going to be helpful? It's not all about the evidence base. It's about how these things are going to help you build a practice as well. But the technology is you go on the web these days and you look for any product, and there's 5 million things, and everybody has some budget and goals. And how do you put together, how do you navigate those decisions? I think we all struggle with that sometimes.
And we discuss it during the course, of course.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I totally agree. Everybody's evidence-based now, right? They're trying to sell you on that and this, and it's great. There are practicalities, like you said, in the facility, where time management, how's it going to help you get through each patient smoothly, the flow of things. So a lot of times it can be evidence-based, but there's common world practicalities that also have to be taken into effect. And I don't think a lot of people think about that. So it's good that you guys go over that in discussions for sure.
In the end, it really comes down to the knowledge of the people that are on your staff and their personalities. And we spend most of our time, or a lot of our time, in education. And we're an advocate for our clients and their pets. And
Yeah.
in a way, we're a bit of a cheerleader, and we try to keep them up and realistic and hopeful at the same time. And so I think a lot of rehab on the human side, as well as the veterinary side, is about relationships with the clients and
Absolutely.
navigating that in the best possible way. And that's something that's hard to learn in a week or a month or maybe even a year. But I think you evolve to better navigate and read people and listen to people. I think we have to sit back and really listen and thoughtfully listen to our clients, to each other. We need to reward people when they do things that are good. I think of students I mentor. In today's society, I don't think we do a good enough a job of telling the people we work with, or maybe our families or friends, that they're appreciated, that that was a good thing. That you're looking for people like to look for criticisms these days with social media. But
Yeah.
if you remember one thing from this podcast, every day tell 5 people when you see them doing something good, how much you appreciate that and thank them. And that may
Yeah.
be the most important thing I say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're being affirmational, you're being inspirational. So I like that. That's really cool. um, Segueing to that, let's discuss some success stories you might have had through the CCAT program.
Yeah, I most recently remember interaction with a veterinary technician was finishing and passing successfully the practical exam at the end. There is a test that has a written and practical portion, a bit of an oral slash practical. And I remember hearing how impactful the program is on a veterinary technician that becomes a CCAT by being empowered within their working environment. And so that, for me, nothing would match transforming somebody's work environment or the responsibilities that they may have is probably the most impactful. We are leveraging somebody, and so being exposed to and made aware of the transformative impact of the program is the biggest reward I can hear or I can get from being involved. I see it indirectly in a veterinarian also appreciating the importance of working as a team, just like a veterinary technician becomes more empowered, more independent. It's all done safely. And it's a way to make also a veterinarian. I see a transformation in the veterinarian that see themselves as a piece of a team or part of a team that will deliver rehabilitation. So that has a profound impact on the dynamic of a team and on the quality of healthcare. The reach of the veterinarian is enhanced and the empowerment of veterinary technician is real. And so for me, that's
Yeah.
the strongest transformation that we see with this program.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. What about you, David?
I've been blessed to have a pretty long career, and I like to, I guess, if reflecting, if I've maybe helped a few thousand people to do a little bit better in some aspect of rehab, and they've each helped maybe hundreds or thousands of patients, you can pretty quickly multiply and say that pretty humbly, you might have had an impact on hundreds of thousands of pets over the years. And I think
Absolutely.
it's not a success story of a program, it's a success story of, I think, why we get into education and mentorship. And I think that's something that when you reflect back over a pretty long career, that was humbling.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But again, you're part of the program. So that can definitely be a success story of the program itself, too. Absolutely. And I do love what you said, Denny, about the empowerment. I think that alone, what you guys can do to help empower, can help just advancing canine rehab in general. That empowerment will help everybody move forward, stay responsible. But yeah, really cool. Now, let's kind of segue into discussing some challenges faced here in establishing and running the program.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we are recovering from the pandemic period, which kind of
Yes.
upset a little bit routines and processes, maybe made people more cautious about the future. People are,
Yeah.
we all, human nature tends to be forgetful in a good way. We process our unpleasant experiences so we can go on. And I think that for something highly collaborative and for something that's emerging also, I think with the pandemic, people went into barebone mode, emergency room only kind of care.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it negatively impacted the optimism in a sense and negatively impacted emerging things, I'm thinking. So I see rehab is bound to rebound, if you want, or continue to expand as medicine continue to evolve. But for a while, people were sheltered or in their shell psychologically,
Mhm.
and said, "I just want to do what I can and not." So the dreams are reappearing now. I'm thinking that's a bit of a challenge, is fading away at this moment.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, pandemic, tough stuff, man. But I'm glad we came out of the other side of it. What about for you, David?
I would say for anybody really working in this field, what we really want is we want to know some things we still don't. What are optimal ways, the most
Yeah.
cost effective, best ways to recover an animal to the best quality of life they can have in the quickest, best fashion. We don't have the large scale RCTs like we do in the human world that help inform us. One of the things that I think drives a lot of people working in this field is we want to continue to up the bar, to do better, to investigate things that haven't been, to just keep pushing that envelope and create a better future. It's sappy, but at the same time, I think that's what everybody who's in these fields, there's a reason we care and we want to do better. And just with students I work with, you wish you could spend more time with everybody and you could be on the
Yeah.
phone 24 hours a day, just talking to folks. And there's also that time you need for your own learning and self-development. I go to a lot of courses. I'm constantly trying to strive to learn more, do better. It's a never-ending battle to just keep striving for excellence. I don't know that I think we're doing a good job in the field, but we have a lot more to know to say we're going to be excellent.
I'm going to add to what Dave just said because you mentioned randomized clinical trials. And also, I'm going to add to these clinical practice guidelines because that's the finish line or the ultimate goal is to a pretty cool Zen group of individuals have analyzed the literature and are giving advice, mentorship on how to address a specific problem. They are giving, and these guidelines are put forward by a respected group of peers that have analyzed really all the randomized clinical trials. So that's where we must go. There are a few other ways to really guide people. Providing advice is a good start, but it doesn't have robustness and of clinical practice guidelines. We in veterinary medicine, there are few guidelines and there are few groups that can. You might have guidelines for the management of renal disease are coming out of groups of specialists in internal medicine because that's a very large college and that's a big issue.
Yeah.
If you think about smaller specialty groups that are dealing with more complex and nuanced situations, you no longer have a group of experts that's coming together regularly to answer important questions about what to do. So it's not that we don't have clinical practice guideline or it's not the sole problem we have. We also don't have a profession or a group of a sub-profession, if you want, a specialty where we are even talking about establishing clinical practice guideline. We are 2 layers remote from being there. It's not like we're working on doing that. We can't work on doing them because we don't have the infrastructure to work on writing clinical practice guidelines. We need to work on a process to set up a group that will set up a clinical practice guidelines. Both Dave and I, we've been around for a while. I have a sense of anxiety. I want to keep working, and I want to work on setting up working groups that are actually going to set up these clinical practice guidelines. And the clock is ticking a little bit. We got to get that done before we retire, I'm thinking, because you don't want people to be reinventing the wheel every 5 minutes. You really want to set up processes that make progress. You want to say, let's just do better research and let's evaluate our research, leverage, get the best out of our research so we can move the profession forward.
Totally. I agree. And that kind of brings me to a point where, I would love for you guys to maybe discuss the significant milestones and achievements of canine sports medicine and rehabilitation. I know we still have a long way to go, but there are those milestones and achievements that have gotten us to where we are, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to say on the vet side, the specialty college coming out was for me like a miracle, if you want, because I have a hard time achieving anything in a committee meeting. And I'm thinking creating an entire specialty college during our career, if you want. So that came out in 2010. And so that's been about 10 years. So that's an enormous accomplishment. Starting the CCAT is a fantastic accomplishment. And the CCAT, putting it together doesn't mean that the thing is going to have a life. And so I think graduating maybe the 100th CCAT certificate holder has been a big milestone to say, hey, it's real, it's happening, it has a community. And so as that community grows, when it's growing, that gives an opportunity to do more and to accelerate. A growing community can achieve a lot more than a stationary or dwindling community.
Yeah.
I can think of a lot of guidelines that are rolling around in my head from the formation of groups like the APTA, SIG, to in 1999, the first big meeting was held at Oregon State in Corvallis. Dr. Linda Blythe, who's retired now, was the organizer, and that group is the IAVRPT, or the International Association of Veterinary Rehabilitation and Physical Therapy. That group is continued to evolve. The meeting this year is in Cape Town. The meeting 2 years ago was in Cambridge.
Yeah.
I believe this is the 12th. And one thing that I think that group has done is it's very equally divided between the veterinary and physical therapy profession. Most of the groups that exist are just for DVMs or just for PTs, and that we're gonna make progress much quicker if we work together and not have division. And so I've always had a soft spot for the IAVRPT. I've attended every meeting since the first one.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
I mean, there was one that Denis was the chair of at NC State. We hosted two of them in Tennessee. So I think that the IAVRPT, there's a lot of specialty colleges also in Europe now. There's a European specialty college on the vet side. There have been a lot of milestones. For me personally, I think publishing the first book, been a while now, but a personal milestone that there was enough to write about. There's so many milestones, but there's so many more that are going to be more significant in the future.
Oh,
yeah. I would love to take a peek back 150 years from now and see where things have gone.
Yeah, with the advancement of medicine, we might be able to do it. Take a look back 150 years from now.
There are no limits, really. I think we, in a bit of a One Health approach, we learn the veterinary and the human medical fields learn a lot from each other.
Yeah.
And it's evolving nicely, but I think we can still we don't have a dedicated journal in this field. We've had a lot of special issues in frontiers and vet clinics and other areas. We don't have a We don't have big meetings that are every year that bring everybody together.
Yeah.
Obviously, PT can go to a big veterinary meeting, a veterinarian can go to a big PT meeting, but we can just share and evolve together.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying today's episode of the Canine Rehab Movement. I just wanted to take a hot minute to talk about something that can make a big difference for both you and your furry friends. Now, today's episode is also sponsored by Elevation Vet USA, your go-to for veterinary shockwave therapy. The PiezoWave 2 Vet is the leader in treating animal musculoskeletal injuries. It pinpoints injuries precisely, ensuring quicker recovery and less discomfort for your furry patients. Not just good for your patients, but great for your clinic's success too. Discover more at veterinaryshockwaveresources.com.
Yeah, no, I agree. The only way forward is both mindsets molding together to give that patient in front of us that optimal outcome, right? Because that's why we're doing it, to get these guys back on their paws. It is a shame that there's still some friction out there, and I do hope that smooths out, because the only friction it's causing is the one for the patient in front of us. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree. We need some better molding for sure. But yeah,
It always has this built-in tension. Who is going to take care of this problem? It's at the margins of things. I'm very interested in the relationship of the specialist surgeon and the specialist in physical rehabilitation, because there is also tension there. And I think there would always be tension until the generation grows with the two in existence, if you want. It's so tempting to ignore things that are emerging, if you want. If you've been around for a while, it takes a lot of humility to say, this didn't exist, but now it does, if you want. So I think some of the merging, the optimization, if you want, of care will come with the next generation. I feel compelled sometimes to say that it wasn't just that I added physical rehabilitation to my portfolio, if you want, after I became a surgeon, is that I really feel, and I felt at the time I was working, that the more important part of myself was the physical rehabilitation part. And that I can decide personally that as an orthopedic surgeon, I serve my more important part, which is my physical rehabilitation part, that the surgeon is working at the service of the physical rehabilitation. It's only one step. And sometimes I tell clients, I have a couple hours of work as a surgeon, but we got a couple months in rehabilitation. That's the much more challenging and important work. And that state of mind, which I think is the correct patient-centered state of mind, has a bit of a ways to go at this point. But it seems a little less crazy now than it did 20 years ago, for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really cool too is that you guys are also bringing in occupational therapists, because there's mindsets there that PTs, vets, and OTs can really do such greatness with functional rehabilitation there. And I think bringing in the OTs really adds another tool to the box there to help that patient in front of us, right? With that being said, can you guys give some insights on any upcoming projects or expansions into the program?
It's logical as the community grows to say, how are we going to continue the discussion effectively? So it would be logical to have additional learning opportunities, which might be in preparation. And you could say we want to have more in-depth discussion about in rehabilitation, we would be working with problems. What you do in rehabilitation obviously varies widely based on the problems we deal with. It varies based on the patient profile, and it varies based on owner's expectation. You always have that triangle to manage if you want. You adapt immediately what you do to the problem that you face, whatever it is, and how long it's been going on, but who the problem affects, and what we try to get out of this situation. So it would be logical to expand our course portfolio, and that's what's in preparation. We're saying we're going to target specific problems, specific patients, and specific targets, specific goals, and the program grows from there. I think there's also need to talk more. We have an active board where we commonly have discussion, but that board can grow in complexity, and communication is key, of course, in what we're doing. We were just talking about interacting with each other. And so I think we will be growing the community by offering more discussions, interactions within that community.
Very cool.
In education in general, it's about keeping things current. Denis mentioned clinical practice guidelines. I had some experience being on CPG groups and the human side. As soon as you finish a clinical practice guideline and it's published, you're already working on the 5-year or so revision.
Absolutely.
So keeping things current to show the evolution, I think is important for any educational program, whether you're at a university or a program like this. Things can't stay static.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what's great about this program too, is it's having an international reach too, right? You guys are starting to go to different places. I hear Philippines is coming up. Are any of you guys headed that way?
So the Philippines is going to be an interesting foray. It's a country where there is really not much at all going on in small animal rehabilitation. Yeah, that is within the next few months. And I think bringing this to other countries, other places to spread the word is wonderful. I remember giving a talk in the 90s in Japan, maybe 95 or something.
Okay.
And it was, like you mentioned before, people snickering, laughing. And it's great to see how things have evolved. I think there's a lot of opportunity to educate people worldwide on live platforms, but also these types of platforms where people can just learn from each other. A meeting in Cape Town this summer or this fall will be a really neat opportunity because you interact with people from maybe 20 countries, and they will may be better at some things or may have a different take, and you keep your eyes open and you learn some new things. I think expansion, there's obviously language barriers.
Absolutely.
And that can be an issue with some of the new translation and AI stuff that I don't know much about.
It's amazing out there now. Yeah.
I'm sure we may not even be speaking to you. This may all be AI. I don't know.
I knew it. You guys are so hard to get a hold of. I knew this was AI. Guys, to bring it on home, what would you say for yourselves, predictions and aspirations for the future of canine rehab?
I think things are going very well. We're getting much more structured and accepted. I think a lot of energy was spent convincing folks, if you want. You have somebody aware and driven, trying to spend a lot of energy overcoming skepticism. And I think we're moving past that point. We are refining. We were talking a few minutes ago, we can boost our effectiveness, but you do that. So I would think physical rehabilitation is established if you look at it stepping back, and it's just like maybe a bone broke, was stabilized and has healed, and now it has to refine itself, fine-tune things. And I think we're not struggling for the existence of physical rehabilitation. I think we are entering a phase of optimization or enhancement where we say, hey, we are going to make it lean and mean. We're going to make it more effective. We're going to make it more universal. And that's a very exciting thing to be doing at this point in my career.
Absolutely.
I would love to see in the future that whether you're at a PT, PTA, OT, veterinary, vet tech school, that there are some opportunities for learning and exposure to the field at that entry-level degree. I know those curriculums are all full, but I know most of them also have some electives, and I think earlier exposure would be something that I would love to help facilitate, and early exposure to all these fields and collaboration between all the fields, I guess, if I could dream.
Yeah, no, that would be amazing for sure. And before we go, our final discussion, I've been told to bring up with you guys, especially with you, Denny. So the Olympics, zero gravity. Apparently it is a discussion.
In a discussion,
A really fun discussion on naming some sports in the Olympics that could be played in zero gravity.
Quite sure where that came from, but it's clearly a very important question to say. Because once we move to some zero gravity environment, I want to know what sports we're going to have to get interested into so I can get a head start on practicing them. So I'm thinking it's going to be slightly different up there.
A little bit. Ironically, I thought about it myself. Brainstormed it. And, whether or not this could happen, I do think it would be interesting to see maybe gymnastics. I think there could be something there, right? Or any kind of shooting or archery, right? Still feasible.
We're talking about shooting an artery because it's going nice and straight. So we'll do fairly well if they go the right way. There'd be some adjustments needed. But gymnastics, you can't leave the ground, because if you leave the ground, you can't come back on it. So you're going to be in contact with the ground constantly.
Depends on how the environment's set up, though.
Oh, yeah, totally. We talked about putting a giant water ball and then seeing
That
what
would be very
swimming
interesting.
we can do on that. So it's going to be really
What would you say about basketball?
everybody will have to shuffle on the ground. It might be a little bit different. The carriers will probably last a lot longer because jumping up and down is not so easy on tendon and so on.
I feel you. Absolutely. My last one I was thinking about was martial arts, especially like judo or something like that.
Totally. Judo is fun. You got to make sure that you bring your opponent back down to the ground, which you might get your points anyway. So judo is good.
Yeah.
French is usually pretty good. The French have done well historically in judo.
Okay.
Yes.
Any insight there, David?
I have no idea what either of you guys are talking about. I'm envisioning this, but I'm going to stay out of this one.
Yeah, it was a little birdie who told me to bring it up. And once I heard it, I had to brainstorm myself and think about these sports that could possibly happen. I also had some other sports, but again, with the zero gravity, it's far-fetched for sure.
Olympic Games coming on this summer, so it's to be thinking about that too.
All right, guys, super entertaining and definitely enlightening. Lots of bits and pieces to process there for sure. We definitely want you on again, so we will be talking soon. Thanks again. You've been listening to the Canine Rehab Movement Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And for more information about our programs, please visit ncsuvetce.com. That's ncsuvetce.com. And for those of you who've made it to the end of the podcast, use the discount code NCSU100 and save $100 off of any course, $4.99 or more. Until next time, guys, this is the Canine Rehab Movement Podcast.